our next guest, Jeff Marek, his new show, The Sheet, noon Pacific, on his YouTube channel as part of the Nation Network. So you have choice. You can watch our show, you can watch Jeff's show, or you can watch one of them later.
That's right.
And
the beauty. They are always available afterwards. Yes.
Watch me later. I'm not that interesting.
And
not consistently, anyway.
Boy, you came on today before we hit record, and you were pumping Blake's tires.
Dude, the tweets were the best. Oh, I'm sorry, like the salon tweet. And then
I'm sure it wasn't the first person to connect Vidal Sassoon to Max Sasson, but whatever.
Okay, can you share for the class, the rest of the class?
Go ahead, Blake. This is your masterpiece.
On the
one hand, it did make me feel a little bit old, but didn't matter. Made me giggle inside.
Oh, I think the only people that liked those tweets were 45 plus for sure. I was just connecting Vidal Sassoon and Max Sasson, and I had a Famke Janssen gif of her with
the feather.
A hair shimmy. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was good. And then what was the other one about skating like Quinn Hughes? If you could have any sort of superpower,
if I could choose any superpower, I would either fly, shoot lasers from my eyes, or skate like Quinn Hughes. I'm not sure which.
Yeah,
that's after he was shaking. He was shaking, 4 checks off last night, just.
But did he even need a warm towel last night? Only 22 minutes. That's it.
I know.
I'm not used to that.
I know.
Wow, what a slacker Quinn Hughes was last night.
So easy.
You guys need a room here at the Wall Center.
American
Mutual Admiration Society.
American Price going forward.
Well, it is.
So, what do you think all happened here with JT Miller, Jeff?
I mean, I'm not in the room. I'm not privy to it. JT Miller is an intense guy, right? I'm always of a couple of minds when I see the Game 7 guys. And we've seen situations before where some players like a room that's run really hot, others don't, and sometimes teams just sort of fall in the middle. Again, I'm not there. You guys are a lot closer to it than I am. I just wonder if, because we've seen plenty of players that want the entire team to sort of rise to their level of expectation and consistency, and essentially run hot. Everything is Game 7. We're here and we're committed. Sometimes not everybody's on the same page. Again, this is from thousands of miles away. The Ontario guys going to tell you what's going on with JT Miller.
No, but I think it's fair to say JT runs the room. That's been the case since Bo Horvat was shipped out. And I think it's also fair to say that he runs the room hot because that's his personality. We had heard look, it's no secret here. Him and Elias Pettersson don't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. They've both said we're completely different personalities. Elias is a, quiet, more thoughtful, more sensitive sort of soul. And JT says a lot of things, and a lot of things loud, and a lot of things with and a lot of things obnoxiously. And it's just a much different vibe from each corner of the center iceman stalls.
And listen, my immediate thoughts go to the Winnipeg Jets, with the relationship with Blake Wheeler, and how, playing the role of Wheeler might be JT Miller, and playing the role of Peter Pettersson maybe Patrick Laine. Not exactly a secret that, Laine has a certain vibe about him and a certain way that he carries himself. And, Blake Wheeler has that intense level of expectation day in and day out that coaches may love and some other teammates may love, but not everybody does. Was, Patrick Laine, the victim of that? I wouldn't be the first to suggest it. I don't think that there's one, I don't know if there's one very specific way to win a championship or be a successful team. I think it takes a mix of a lot of personalities. I think that it would be folly for us to think that, all 23 guys are getting along. Long gone are the days of the early 70s Boston Bruins when the rule was, after every practice or every game, everybody had to go out together as a team for at least one beer. Those days are gone. Now it's 23 guys, 23 phones, 23 Ubers. It's a lot different now. But I don't know that there's necessarily one specific way to run a room. And I think personalities can often clash. And
well, we have precedent. We have precedent. This team can have success with this current makeup. I mean, there's been new guys brought in. I don't think they're necessarily the quote unquote problems.
Winnipeg team went to the West Final against Vegas,
right? Like, and this team was a win away, 2 kicks at the can to go to the West Final themselves. So we have precedent to show that this team chemistry can work to a large degree, at the very least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of, it's interesting. I was talking to someone the other day about getting along with teammates, getting along with coaches. And you guys recall the old saying about Scotty Bowman, right? 364 days of the year, everybody hated Scotty. And on day 365, they all got their rings.
Yeah.
So, like, there's not specifically one way. And just because people don't get along, I've always maintained you don't have to like someone to be able to do business with them. Like, that is a true. And the really successful people in business, whether it's, the financial industry, whether it's the hockey industry, the successful ones are able to do business with people that they don't get along with and people that they don't like. I think that's a skill. Some people have it, some people don't. Like, if you can look at a teammate and say, like, I really don't like them, but for the good of the team here, we have to find a way to get along. I think that's how successful teams are made. Because there's not going to be 23 guys, they're all cool with each other. Not anymore. No chance.
Hey, basketball teams have 12 guys, and we have like Kobe and Shaq and the Bulls, and they couldn't get 12 guys on the same page.
Jeff just described my last 13 years.
Yeah. Okay, JT.
Kidding.
Over to you,
a little
Blake.
hot, Blake. A little warm in here. You need
Blake
the puffy
runs
coat.
the room hot, man.
You need
Matt
the
was on
puffy
show
coat.
yesterday. He spent the first 5 minutes running you down, Blake. Sorry, I had to find out like this.
I did
No
not.
surprise. No surprise.
Yeah. So, well, what did you make of JT last night? What do you make of this? What do you make of this?
Honestly, the whole team was great. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking, like, okay, I'm going to come on with Carissa Price today. What am I going to say? Like, can I find any sort of like flypaper? Say, like, at the end of it, the only question was that great or really great? If you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, like, from the get-go, everything clicked. Like, I haven't watched all the Vancouver Canucks games this season. You guys have, but that's the best I've ever seen the Vancouver Canucks.
That is the best. It's arguably their best win. Yeah, no, that's fair, Jeff. Mm-hmm.
I mean, could
especially given the quality of opponent, right?
Like, against the defending Stanley Cup champions, who and listen, they like you guys saw, like, they tried to bully the Vancouver Canucks. Florida Panthers tried to bully everybody. They are the closest thing to the Broad Street Bullies. Now we hear about the Panther flu and Florida's on the schedule. My shoulders, I'm not like we hear things like this now. And they tried to bully the Vancouver Canucks, and they didn't. And everything clicked together. Lankinen was great. Miller was great. The fourth line was outstanding. Quinn Hughes, this is a recording. He was excellent. Carson Soucy had a really nice goal. Like, everything worked yesterday for the Vancouver Canucks, and JT Miller was the focal point of all of it, and a nice touch that he got the first star out of the whole thing.
Could this go any better for the Canucks in goal right now? For a sport that still gets referred to as goalie right now, I mean, could it be any better for a soft re-entry for Thatcher Demko, who was great in his debut, all things considered? But to have Lankinen as the fallback of hey, no rush. We don't need Thatcher to be A1 every single night or play every single night. I mean, that part of it, and considering how important a position it is, go look at the Colorado Avalanche and others. Sure. I mean, that part of this team is working out just perfectly, isn't it?
Yeah, that's been ideal. I mean, it's the hardest position to get to really get your thumb on. And I mean, every Friday we have Brian Burke on the sheet, and I've known Berkey forever. Most of the time we've gotten along. There was a few years there where bluntly we didn't talk, but Brian and I have basically always been on the same page. And he would always tell me, and he still does to this day, he said, I have no idea why it's the general managers that vote on the Vezina. He said, that's the one position we always screw up. The history of general managers is screwing up the goal and making bad decisions and bad picks, and we are awful
Jeff, listen to coaches talk. Head coaches shouldn't vote on it either. Anytime you hear a head coach talking about it, like, I don't know what. I'll talk to my guys.
But you know what the frustrating thing about that is the goaltender and the head coach are more directly linked than any other position on the ice. Yeah. You got a bad goalie. Guess who's going to pay for it? It's the guy behind the bench. But they've gotten themselves into a great situation here. And listen, Lankinen had his go around with Chicago, with Nashville as well, and has found a great spot right now where it's all working for the Vancouver Canucks. We always talk about goaltenders hitting the stride at different times of their career. It's happening right now, big time for Kevin Lankinen. And how many times have we heard goaltenders, kind of be shy about, well, unless I feel perfect, I don't want to get on the ice. And I'm not saying that Thatcher Demko is that guy, but it does give you the luxury that if Demko isn't 100% feeling it that day, it's okay. It's not if the guy is falling. It's all right. It's like, okay, so we got to go to Lankinen. Okay, he just threw a bagel at the defending Stanley Cup champions. We're good here.
Now that Miller's back, now that Demko's back, what do you think the Canucks' upside is, Jeff?
I still want to see another defenseman that can move the puck. I still want to see one more D that can shuttle the puck out of the zone. I know that's not going to be the easiest thing to find, but we all know about Jim Rutherford's reputation and Patrick Allvin as well as, shaking the bushes and getting someone to fall out here. I think, like I've always maintained, as long as they're healthy, the Vancouver Canucks, you guys know this, they have a superstar at all key positions. Not to diminish the wing here, but they have elite players at center. They have one of, if not the best defenseman in the NHL. And when Thatcher Demko is healthy, you have a top 3, maybe top 5 goaltender in the league. Like at those power positions where you win games and win divisions and conferences and championships, provided everyone stays healthy, they have that all set. Again, I'd still like to see a little more mobility on the back end. Although last night, man, the pairs worked out great and they played really well. I don't know you're going to see that sustained over the course of the remainder of the schedule. But against the defending Stanley Cup champions, it was nice to see. I still want to see one more mover back there. But right now, provided everybody stays healthy, this is a team that can do some significant damage, and they have some experience to draw on from last season as well and playoffs.
Okay, so let me follow that up and ask you this then. Right? They get that guy, theoretically. Does that make them tier 1 cup contender, or does that make them dark horse cup contender? Like they're getting that guy to become what?
Still dark, still dark horse for me. I mean, you're. It's funny too, though. I mean, when you look around. I was having this conversation with someone this morning. It's like, who do you think is going to win? Just frivolously, you guys have had this. So who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year? My default is still the Florida Panthers. My default is still, I can see that team once again flipping the switch and bullying their way to another Stanley Cup, provided everybody stays healthy. I can see that. But you look around the NHL, like, how do we feel about Winnipeg? How do we feel about Minnesota? Both are playing great. We know what's happened with Winnipeg before in the playoffs, and we know it's tough to compete with a $14 million black hole of salary cap if you're the Minnesota Wild. At what point are we going to start to see the Dallas Stars really turn things on here and have them turn a significant corner and be the team that we think they can be? Heck, they lost to Nashville last night. Let me repeat that. They lost to Nashville last night. Vegas is good. I'm still not 100% sold on the Los Angeles Kings. Edmonton doesn't hit their stride in this incarnation of the Edmonton Oilers until January. So I'll still put them in that second tier of cup contender. But then I look around the Western Conference, and part of me is saying, what's my hesitation? It's not like, and we'll see what happens with Colorado with the new net mining situation. They should be in cup consideration, but I mean, there's no one really, maybe Vegas for me, that's really like that Florida Panthers of the West, where you look at them and you say, yeah, that's a team that's going to come out of the conference here.
Jeff, we've heard this bandied about.
It's a wide field, I think.
We've heard this bandied about that there is no elite team. Like even the teams that are running away with it, the Capitals and the Devils, this is their first time being at the top of the standings in a long while. Like, do you believe in it? Do you believe in the Jets and Wild? Like, again, these are
Capitals.
Yeah, like, is there an elite team?
Florida Panthers are still an elite team to me.
Okay, but that's based on reputation, right? Like, that's based on the fact they are the Cup champs, rather than what we're seeing.
But the thing is, they haven't really profoundly changed the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not one area you look at and you say, well, that's where teams are going to exploit. Like, sure, like at the end of every season, successful. I mean, we saw this, starting with the Blackhawks and the Kings, et cetera, Penguins. Like you win championships and you lose players, and that's naturally going to happen. But show me where the Florida Panthers have taken a significant step back. I don't see it. Now, I don't think the Florida Panthers are going to have foot on the gas for the entire 82. But I do know that there's about nobody in the Eastern Conference that wants to face off against the Florida Panthers in the opening round. Nobody wants to touch these guys. Provided they, again, the wild card is, of course, health. Provided they stay healthy, I think if I'm going to pick one elite team in the NHL, it's still Florida.
You think they could overcome the loss of Ryan Lomberg then? All right.
So I was just going to point out
I do like the Lamborghini, but I don't know that I like him as a Stanley Cup difference.
Who doesn't? He's a great character in the league right now.
And I fully agree that they know how to win, and so they're a bit like the 2010 to 2012 Canucks that you don't really need to examine the regular season too much because they can do it in the playoffs. But they are 7th in the league right now. They are 9th in goal differential. Like they're a great team. But are they elite this season?
I'm glad. Hang on. I'm glad you brought up Vancouver of that era, and you can make the argument too that the Toronto Maple Leafs fall into this category as well. And that is, there are no answers in the regular season for these teams. Like the best example is that Vancouver Canucks era that you talked about. Regular season, not saying it's meaningless, but there's no answers. We're not going to learn anything new. Like you're not going to learn anything new about the Florida Panthers in the regular season. All the answers, again, are in the playoffs. Maple Leafs are the exact same way. Like there are just some teams at the beginning of the year, you just know they're saying to themselves, let's just get the regular season over with. Yeah, we just need to get it over with. And that's Florida, that's Toronto.
And the flip side, like Washington is winning 75% of their points, Minnesota 72, Vegas 71. That is elite, but I think we can all.
There's question marks along with it.
That's it. Yeah. I think we all have reason for skepticism on those marks through a third of the season.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly.
And we'll see how they do over the 82 grind. And even then, we have a history of unbelievable President's Trophy runaway winners. Losing in round one, Boston and Tampa. Yes. So,
although again, like how much? I mean, so much on history. Sort of, it can sometimes hinge on one shot. I keep coming back to it. If Bobrovsky doesn't make that pad save in the dying seconds of that game against the Boston Bruins in the opening round, what happens to the Florida Panthers and what happens to the Boston Bruins? Both, how different are the fates of both those squads? Because you could have made I think the argument, and rightfully so, that Boston could have won the Stanley Cup that year.
Yep. Oh, for sure.
Just that one pad save. Oh.
Last week you told us about general managers who may hold off till after the Four Nations to make their acquisitions because they want to make sure that guys are healthy.
Yep.
This week I encountered, and I forget who had it, some of the sellers want to unload, particularly their rentals before the Four Nations in case they get injured, so, Jeff. This will be an interesting tug of war here.
We talked about the warp and weft of it. Like we want to get rid of our guys like before they get injured at the Four Nations because we talked about who did we talk? We talked about Hasek, right? We used the Hasek example and John Tavares.
The quintessential, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but it takes two. Right? Like, yes, teams want to unload before the Four Nations in case their players get injured, but the acquiring teams as well might be a little bit gun shy until like the example that I keep using are the Dallas Stars, who we know are going to be out there, as I put in the blog this week, big game hunting. Like if Jake Ottinger gets into this tournament and gets injured, how much does that recalibrate everything about the Dallas Stars? Because internally, they've made the decision, this is go for it year. They are going for it. They have first-round picks that they can use. They have, I don't think it's we saw Liam Bixel yesterday, and it's a beautiful goal that he scored, albeit in a losing cause, but it's going to be really hard to hang on to him. It's going to be hard to hang on to Maverick Bourque if you're going to go for it the way that we suspect Dallas is. But how much do you recalibrate if Ottinger gets hurt? And how much, if you're Jim Nill, do you want to wait until the Four Nations is over before pulling the trigger on all of these deals. Like, I understand both sides of it. Like the teams that have the assets want to get rid of them in case before they get hurt, and the acquiring teams are like, talk to me after the tournament.
And here's the thing, Jeff. What I hear when I consider that dynamic is maybe there's a deal to be had. Maybe you get a good rental at a lower cost if you're willing to take him before the Four Nations.
Take that
with a nervous general man. Exactly. Maybe he's nicked a little. That.
Watching the games and clutching your pearls, hoping.
Right, exactly.
Nothing happens.
Lastly, Bog meeting this week. It seems pretty sure we're going to an 84-game schedule. Even the players apparently are okay with that. LTIR in the playoffs, tax equalization on jurisdictions. What do you think?
That one's going to be a tough one. But I can
tax or LTIR in the playoffs.
I think both of them,
or both.
I can see, and I'll tell you why. One of the things that I think we need to consider too is like this is something that needs to be negotiated with this in the new CBA. And as much as we sometimes look at this and say, "Hey, Patrick Kane, Mark Stone, Nikita Kucherov," and I think we all this year have our eyes on Tyler Seguin and how that's going to play itself out with the Dallas Stars. We shall see. This is something that the minute the ink was dry on the salary cap, everybody's tried to look for loopholes or ways around it or try to massage it to their benefit. Chicago was the first one with this situation with Patrick Kane. And they brought in Antoine Vermette, et cetera, and they then ended up winning a Stanley Cup because they had that quote unquote extra cap space. The thing that you need to consider as well, too, from the Players Association's point of view, one of the things, like if you say like, okay, you need to be cap compliant. If you don't play, one game before the playoffs, you can't play in the playoffs. They will be very sensitive to, you can't punish a player for being injured. Right? How many times you heard that you can't, let a player injure himself out of the lineup? Let's say like legitimately someone can't come back until game 4 of the opening round. I know we all look at this stuff kind of sideways. I just don't think that the issue is as cut and dry as we want to think about it. I guess you could have sort of floating day of, you have to be cap compliant. Maybe we go that direction. 84 games. Doesn't surprise me. I'm actually, to be honest with you, like I'm actually kind of surprised that it took so long to get here. The minute the NHL Players Association agreed to salary linkage, the idea of going backwards with games was off the books. But the idea of adding games to get more hockey-related revenue in the system was very much part of the conversation. So part of me says, 2024, 25, I'm kind of surprised it took us this long to get here.
Marvelous stuff, my friend. Really enjoying your show.
Thanks, man.
Couple weeks in. Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me on this week, and we will catch up next Friday, great. Jeff.
Blake, you're on the hook next.
It's okay. I'll be here.
I mean, his tweets
Keep the hot
alone.
Tweets coming. Keep the hot tweets coming. Let's go. Got a standard now. We're running your Twitter hot, bud.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, boys.